Oh, yeah, the clapper? Sure. Don't count that against me, though. So I just built a little tool recently that I thought I'd show off. It's basically, I got to move the mouse over here. Where's my mouse? So I've been working on building a new data structure, actually a set of data structures, persistent hash maps, which are similar to what Clojure has, and based on a thing called hash array mapped trees. And when I started to build them, I realized that just printing them out as I was building these relatively complex structures was just not going to be enough to really understand what was going on. So I wanted a way to see them graphically. So I had a few requirements. I wanted it to support any data structure, including arbitrary record types. I wanted to handle cycles because there could be graphs involved. And I wanted to do automatic layout. And I wanted to produce PNGs, SVGs, et cetera. And all that kind of just cries out for dot from GraphViz, that package. So I'm just generating dot files based on data structures on the fly and then popping them up. So there's one other thing. These data structures get fairly big and quickly become unwieldy for displaying on a regular screen. So I do things like run length encode them, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like so that they get a little bit smaller. So here is, I call the function debug dot. Here is 5 being printed. Here is the string visualize being printed. So you can see the tag, the type is shown above it, and then the actual value is underneath. Here's a pair, of 1 and 2. Let's see, I should actually make this bigger. Here's a list. So just for compactness, if it's a proper list, I just display it as I would an array. And then, of course, a vector. In the case of vectors, I actually show the value in each cell and the index, like this. And then you can see I can make a graph out of 2 vectors, and it can display that properly. And then here's the run length encoding. So in this vector at the top, the number 3 appears 3 times in a row. So I show 1, 2, and then I say cells 2 through 4 contain 3, and then 5 contains 4, and so on. And bit strings, which I do use a lot of in this data structure, are similar. So you can see there's a 1 there and a 1 there, and all the rest are zeros. So that's encoded a little bit more compactly here. It's not quite clear where the boundary between wanting to do run length and not wanting to do run length is, but it's been helpful. And then here is a data structure this is a small data structure that I was trying to, that I used while I was debugging. So this is a record that has an equal procedure in it, that is this procedure. It has a count that's 7. It has a hash procedure in it. It has a Boolean, another Boolean, and then the root of a tree. And here's where you see where it's nicer than just pretty printing. It really does give you a feel for the kind of tree structure of this data structure. And here again, you can see that the bit strings have been shortened and the vectors aren't really shortened, but the run length encoding is coming into play. So I found this super, super useful while I was building these data structures. I was just printing them out constantly. And it's all interactive, so it can just pop right up on the screen when I need it. So I want to add a few extra features. So I want to be able to say, when you display this particular data structure, omit, for example, these particular parts of the diagram. So for example, those procedures that were listed in the tree previously, those almost never change. They're not interesting, so I would like to just omit them and compact things down a little bit. And sometimes you want to replace one data structure with another. And then dot has a lot of other features like vertical orientation, which might be nice for some records or all records. And then you can display arbitrary HTML, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it would be nice to do just a little bit more support for the rest of dot. But even as it is, it's quite useful. So like I said, it was very, very helpful while I was debugging. It's only about 250 lines of code. I do plan to open source it eventually, but I just want to tune it just a little bit more first. And that's my email address if you want to talk about it. Thanks. Did I make it? Okay. Does anyone have questions?
You said the output is coming from GraphViz, which is a Windows program only?
No. GraphViz runs on almost everything. It's a free program that was, I think, originally made at Bell Labs. It's actually a group of programs, and Dot, which I'm using, is one of them. which does a particular type of layout that you see here. But it's got a language which has a lot of curly braces and stuff like that. It's kind of Baroque, so it's nice to generate it.
So how are you invoking that?
I just call a subprocess and just.
Are you invoking that every time you put a display?
Yeah, I invoke it every time I want to display. It's the overhead of making the call is very low, and I'm not animating or anything like that, so I just want to say show it to me now, and that takes no time. Yeah.
You wrote this in Clojure, you say?
No scheme. Yeah,
Which scheme?
MIT scheme. I worked on it years ago, and I still am partial to it until I replace it with my own. Yeah.
I think it would be cool if they have the enclosure too. Maybe you can.
Yeah, the good thing about it is that right now it's so short that anyone could translate it very easily. And in fact, I'm sure someone else has done this already. If they haven't, the idea of it will be so easy to think of and translate anyway, even without my code. Yeah.
Would it make sense for a vector whether you can't do plug encoding to leave out the indices to scrunch it down? So check seems we're plugging the bar.
So leaving out the indices might be okay for a small vector, but as soon as it gets to be any size, you really need to know them. So in this data structure, there are all kinds of computations that map from the bit strings to the place in the vector, but it's not a one-for-one mapping, so you really need to, in this case, see them. But I'd like to add this facility to do arbitrary transformations on the way out so that you could say things like, do add them for this, don't add them for that. Yeah. All right, well, thanks very much, everybody.